committee. I don't know if
I'm
you
nervous.
saw.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Talk to me. You're on
Donnie.
the chair. Talk to me. What are you nervous about for Donnie? Is that the guy?
I think this is Donnie's best shot. I do, and there's got to be a wing for Hall of Fame people. You know, it was so important for people, his teammates. He made his teammates so much better. And I don't know, you know, if his back had been okay, you could say that about a lot of people. He and Dale Murphy have my attention in this group. I mean, what do you guys think?
Listen, I'm a diehard Yankee fan. Don Mattingly is not a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry. People bend over backwards to try to put Don Mattingly into the Hall of Fame. Does he have good numbers? Absolutely. Does he have 8 outstanding years? Absolutely. Does he have 222 career home runs? Yeah. Does he have less than 3,000 hits? Yeah. Did he play about 14 years? Absolutely. Just like David Wright of the New York Mets, injury shortened his career. I understand that. I love Don Mattingly. But I can't understand for the life of me when the Hall of Fame turned into the Hall of Good. Mediocre players, not saying Don Mattingly's a mediocre player, he's a 1B. The Keith Hernandezes of the world, the Don Mattinglys, the Tim Rock Raines, the Mike Mussinas, all these dudes, they're not Hall of Famers. Bernie Williams isn't a Hall of Famer. Paul O'Neill's not a Hall of Famer. The only dudes out of the core 4 that are Hall of Famers are Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter. The Hall of Fame is rarefied air, guys. This is not a diss on anybody when I say that they're not a Hall of Famer, dude. Is Don Mattingly a Hall of Famer at life? Absolutely. Is Don Mattingly an all-time great Yankee? Absolutely. Isn't that good enough? If you're an all-time great New York Yankee like Don Mattingly is, you're out in Legends Field, you're out in center field, you have a plaque at the mecca of baseball on the planet Earth. Everybody knows you as Donnie Baseball. And I think what's happening is Don Mattingly is starting to replace Pete Rose as that he should get into the Hall of Fame discussion. I know that's another discussion for another time. But Don Mattingly, every year that goes by, people want to put him more and more into the Hall of Fame. The reason Buck Showalter says that he's nervous is because he's not a Hall of Famer. They're hoping that he's liked so much, and Buck Showalter's first words out of his mouth are he's a Hall of Fame person. Absolutely. But guess what? You don't get in the Hall of Fame because of your personality. Ty Cobb is in the Hall of Fame. Ty Cobb was an active card-holding member of the Ku Klux Klan. This is not a place where we vote the best person in. You vote the greatest baseball players ever to draw breath in the Hall of Fame. The bar has been lowered. And this veteran voting system, I don't like it. To be honest with you, man, I think it's lost its luster. And now the bars used to be different. And I understand baseball is changing and statistics are changing and WAR and OPS plus and all that noise. It used to be 300 wins to get in as a pitcher. It used to be 3,000 strikeouts. It used to be career average of 350 or 3,000 hits, 500 home runs. Don Mattingly has none of those things. He has a lifetime average without looking at it from the top of the dome, 301. Gold Glove defense, absolutely. Mustache, amazing. But Hall of Famer, I don't think so. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I don't like to touch the third rail of Yankee talk. But as a diehard Yankee fan that's been over to 350 Yankee games, it's around 378. I am not going to lie, and I'm not going to let my Yankee fandom just completely overtake my brain. And my brain says that Don Mattingly is not a Hall of Famer. a legend Yankee with a plaque in Yankee Stadium should be good enough. And also, I don't think Donnie Baseball's asking for this. This conversation has been thrown on Donnie Baseball. So it's not his fault. And another thing before I stop with the Don Mattingly tirade, you're never going to see him coach the New York Yankees, manage the New York Yankees, because the New York Yankees do not want to hire a beloved Yankee so they can fire him one day. That is a lose-lose proposition.
I agree. Listen, I agree. I mean, and by the way, I'm going to say this too. Dale Murphy was my favorite player growing up. Mattingly's one of my favorite people I've ever met in baseball.
Why, AJ? No, but why, AJ? Why?
Because they're just awesome people to talk to, and they literally would give you their shirt off your back, and they were not unbelievable players, first of all, but then when you talk to them, you're just like, this guy. I mean, Dale Murphy. Listen, as a Braves fan growing up, Dale Murphy, 2 MVPs, back-to-back MVPs, took the worst teams I've ever seen and carried them for years. Actually got them to the playoffs, which is unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how 400 plus home run. I just don't understand how he's not in, but. And Mattingly, everything he went through in New York, all the stuff with George and all whatever you want to say, and the years he put together, he should be in the Hall of Fame. But the problem I have, is also as someone that played against Barry and Clemens and those guys, I think they should be in too. I'm sorry, I draw the line of steroid use at.
This is the thing. You don't know if Don Mattingly was on the juice. Also, a lot of guys in the 80s were on amphetamines. I'm not saying Don Mattingly was a user. He wasn't. But when you try to compare Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Don Mattingly's not even in the same galaxy, guys. Like, when you want to talk about even Alex Rodriguez, Don Mattingly doesn't even sniff Alex Rodriguez. Don Mattingly doesn't even sniff Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter's got 5 rings. He's 5th all-time on the hits list. Like, those are Hall of Fame numbers. This is all a participation trophy at this point. This is all a like contest. Listen, man, whenever I think of Don Mattingly in my head with that mustache, I think baseball. He personifies baseball. But it doesn't mean that he needs to be in the Hall of Fame just because he's a liked guy in Major League Baseball. I mean, listen, man, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but this is a baseball debate that we need to have. And I get my balls busted constantly for being like a turncoat on the New York Yankees. But like I said before, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you what's on my mind. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. It's New York Minute Sports. It's New York Sports for New York Nuts. So this should be good in the comments section today.
2005. If you got caught after 2005 when they told you, hey,
stupid.
you can't do this, then you're out. I don't care who you are. Alex Rodriguez, out. Manny Ramirez, out. All these guys, Rafi Palmeiro, I don't know if you were there then, out. Right? You got caught after they said don't do this. If there's allegations of you before that, fine. You're fine because that wasn't
See, this is where you think I'm going to be contradictory, is the fact that I think all the steroid guys should be in. Take away the steroids, Barry Bonds made the Hall of Fame prior to him even taking a steroid. Roger Clemens, even prior to taking a steroids, was a Hall of Famer. Mark McGwire, not a Hall of Famer. See, that's the thing. If Mark McGwire is not a Hall of Famer, Don Mattingly's not a Hall of Famer, guys. So it's that kind of bar that you set. And him saying Manny Ramirez, listen, man, everybody was on the juice. The pitchers were on the juice. The players were on the juice. It's either you just make a separate wing in the Hall of Fame, you put an asterisk next to everybody's name, and you put them in. I'm not saying put them in because they're likable guys. In fact, they're not. A majority of these guys I don't like, I despise. But when you look at them, go look at Roger Clemens' numbers, please. Go look at Barry Bonds' number. Do you know that Barry Bonds won an MVP? It was 2 times in 3 years, twice in his career. When he was on the Pittsburgh Pirates and he weighed 120 pounds soaking wet, Barry Bonds saw Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa hitting 70 home runs, getting all that attention. He didn't take a steroid. Then he goes, oh, yeah? Hold my beer and see what I can do. And Barry Bonds went out and he shattered every single record while he only got 4 pitches a week to see. That's a Hall of Famer. That's somebody that is so good that they exceed anything that they took, anything that they did. The numbers are there. With Don Mattingly, the numbers do not match up.
Start with the Mets. I just want to get your take on where they're at this offseason, what you would do if you were them. And I do want to press you on the report that came out that we kind of mostly said was hogwash, but talked about how Lindor and Soto are very different. And so maybe they're not best friends, and that Lindor and McNeil got into it again. Like, do we care about this, or do we more care about this team getting some pitching so that they can make it through a full season?
Pitching, the last part, the better teams win. You know, that's true on every club that you just may not hear about it. There's, you know, I used to tell them when the season's over, okay, we pick your friends for you, go pick your own friends. And, you know, Jeff and
for some of the people that don't know what he's talking about, Jeff McNeil and Lindor have had a checkered past ever since Buck Showalter was the manager, and that was a few years ago. And now apparently reports have it that Soto and Lindor are not hitting it off either. Listen, it makes all the sense in the world. Baseball's a big ego thing. That's why Juan Soto wanted to be the highest paid baseball player in history, is because it is an ego thing. You look at the next guy on the line and go, how much is he making? I want to go one step above. Also, you are pressured by the players union to try to grab as much money as possible. So you have a guy like Lindor, who is the face of the team, friends with the owner, Cohen, and it's his place. And all of a sudden, Juan Soto shows up with his personalized suite for his whole family, the personal security detail for his whole family. So did that cause a rife in the locker room of the New York Mets? Let me know in the comments below, because Buck Showalter won't play too much into it because he doesn't want to touch on a situation that he had nothing to do with. But you know that what separates good baseball managers is controlling a locker room. Ask Joe Torre about all the egos that he used to have to wrangle up. And Buck Showalter did a great job because they won under his tutelage. So he was able to make these guys work. Also, New York Met fans, you can help me with this. You know I'm a diehard Yankee fan. But there was even a huge dispute over winning the batting title and a car involved, with Lindor telling either Jeff McNeil or Nemo that if they won the batting title, he would buy him a car, and it took him about 2 years to get him the car. But I digress. Let's go back to Buck Showalter.
And Francisco are different. You know, Jeff's a Long Beach State dirtbag, loves, you know, everything about the game. You know, thinks the world's against him sometime with line drives at people. And Lindor is a very stylish, worldly guy, and they're not, but it works. You know, I called them together the first day I got there, and I'd heard a lot of stuff, and we didn't have a problem. Jeff, I think, led the whole globe in hitting that year. Nobody on the globe hit for a higher batting average than Jeff McNeil. And I think if you actually knew everything that went on behind the scenes with the relationships, and you're thrown together in a locker room for 8 months, 7 months. I mean, heck, I've been married 43 years, and there's not a day goes by I don't have to just shut up. But
you know, you don't like everybody that you work with, and especially now when you're adding millions of dollars and egos that are bigger than the room, that can happen in the locker room. Hey, listen, man, I got to give it to Aaron Boone then. It seems like he keeps the locker room above water, and Mendoza did not do a good job with the New York Mets this year. That's why I'm so surprised the New York Mets manager isn't getting more heat than he is, because after what happened this year and the $300 million collapse, I mean, how does that not fall on the head of the head coach? If you're not going to fire the general manager, Stearns, how does that not fall on your ball club? I'll tell you this. If Buck Showalter had that same exact Mets team last year, he would have made the playoffs. Absolutely. If Willie Randolph had that team, he would have made the playoffs. And the reason that I'm doing this video today for Buck Showalter is he, as you know, he coached the New York Yankees before they got Joe Torre in the early 90s. And Buck Showalter is great at getting teams, developing teams and getting them to the dance, but not winning the dance. Think about all the teams that he managed that made it almost to the cusp of winning a World Series, and then somebody else had to come in and win a World Series for him. He was with the Yankees. He was with the Diamondbacks. Think about it, guys. Every team that he's coached. He got him right to a point, and he couldn't win the big one. But Buck Showalter is a great baseball mind, and personalities are one of the biggest parts in keeping a baseball team going.
Okay, because he seems to like to not go after the big starting pitcher, not go after the big fish. He always wants to try to maneuver and be look. I hate to say this because I like David Stearns, but like he wants to say like, oh look, I found this diamond in the rough all the time. Why won't he just go after and get the best guy that fits his team? It's oh look, we can get this guy for a little bit better deal, and he's not quite as good, even though he's really not as good.
Well, just because like Brian Cashman likes to outthink baseball, Stearns likes to, when you got all the money in the world, he still shops at the dollar store and he likes to get value. And that's the big thing about analytics in baseball nowadays is that you can see like the Cannings of the world and then the converted closer Clay Holmes. You can see that they find value in these guys in the statistics and that they pitch ground balls or they do a certain thing correctly and that they can bring that out of players that other teams haven't been able to do. And Brian Cashman does it all the time with bullpen arms. Look at what Luke Weaver did. They get him in the coaching lab. Also, the Mets pitching lab, they were talking about that. So,
right? Why does David Stearns do that? And actually, forget David Stearns. Why do most GMs try to do that? Why don't they just go out and get the best players?
Pitching, though, we're talking about Buck for Stearns, by the way, just to clarify so people don't say, they got Soto. We know that. We're talking about starters, Buck, because last year he did what he did the year before, and he's signing guys like Montas instead of going for the big fish.
Yeah, it's the ideal situation is you're kicking out your own players, but if you've got three so-called big-time prospects, you're lucky if one of them hits between the physicalness, being physically fit. But, David's kind of had that if you look at his track record with Milwaukee, which he didn't do a lot of player acquisition there other than, I think, trading Josh Hader. There's not really a big track record of how he looks at things. But, you can always say no. You can always find a doctor that's going to poo-paw his physical status. Putting your arm over your head and jerk it down violently 100 times every fifth day is going to hurt your shoulder and your elbow. It's going to give at some point. So the problem, AJ, is that when you've acquired enough innings and track record to be good and everybody's going, wow, what a great free agent. Well, there's a lot of wear and tear on that arm. And who's going to be holding that player when it pops? I mean, those are the conversations that.
Look at Corbin Burns. Perfect example. His elbow blew out, looked like spaghetti, and the Diamondbacks went out and spent a lot of money on him. The Orioles gave him up. Sometimes it's addition by subtraction. And also, baseball has changed. The years of giving guys long contracts. Look at the contract Garrett Cole has right now. It's hindering the Yankees from doing a lot of offseason moves. And Garrett Cole just got off of Tommy John surgery, and now he's in his 30s, and now we're holding the bag for like another 5 years. You're always going to pay for the front of the salary. You're always going to pay for the front of the contract of a player. Like, that's why Skubal, everyone's talking about go get Skubal, go get Skubal. Are you willing to gamble all of the youth that we have again for a year rental as far as the New York Yankees are concerned? Why would the Mets go out and get him when he's going to be a free agent next year when they don't have to give up their farm system and they can just go pay for him because the Mets have that kind of money? So Yankee fans that were talking about Skubal and stuff, listen, we have enough pitching, okay? They need to develop our players, Ben Rice, Jason Dominguez, Austin Wells, Anthony Volpe. They all need to take the next step, and this team needs to get better. It's as simple as that. This is a really thin free agency market.
Happen. Trying to project health is such a hard task, and that's why it's so important that you develop your own pitchers. But I think I'm trying to figure what trade do you remember that David Stearns made other than the Josh Hader trade? I'm trying to think. I'm sure there were some.
The Yelich. He signed Locane, Christian Yelich after. I mean, those two guys they got in the same year after Dominguez Santana had like a 30-homer year in Milwaukee. I mean, he's made a couple moves, but I hear what you're saying. But don't you want to go all in and say, you know what, at the end of the day, we got bit by the injury bug? Isn't that better than I hope I hope I
yeah, you
make
can't.
it. Like,
I'm not saying he's scared. Don't get me wrong, but if you're scared, you need to get a dog, because you got to take chances along the way. That's why it's so intriguing about the Japanese and Korean pitchers, and you know, they're not all obviously the same. You got to really do your homework on it. But well, let me ask you guys a question. If you could only sign one player and you were the Mets, would you sign Pete Alonso or Edwin Diaz?
I would sign Pete Alonso. There's a lot more Edwin Diaz's walking around than Pete Alonso. The first base position has been undervalued lately, but there is not a lot of guys out there. It's kind of like the center field position in baseball right now. It's very, very thin, the market. Corner outfielders, it's another thin market. Power hitting right-handed guys, another thin market. So I think that you could bounce back from an Edwin Diaz loss more so than you can from a Pete Alonso loss. Also, talking about the fan base, dude, with them being an all-time Met, the all-time home run leader, he's been a Met his whole life. Like, do the Mets not have any loyalty to anybody? Then it shows how they're dealing with Pete Alonso, how they just signed Juan Soto, and how they're treating Lindor. Is the word getting out in the rest of the league about the Mets and favoritism on their roster?
Or Kyle Schwarber.
No.
Or Kyle
Your own two guys. If you can only sign one of the two, the owner said, "Hey, David, pick one of them. Which one you want?"
I'm taking Diaz right now because he affects games more. I love Pete Alonso, but I'm taking Diaz because he affects games. As you know, Buck, a great closer. We had Zach Britton on the other day, and he was complaining about that game you didn't bring him in. You know how those games affect you. Sorry, too soon. But also, what I want to know.
He knows the whole story. There's more to it than meets the eye.
But I would rather have the great closer that can close out. Because listen, there's no psychological advantage more than the team looking down there and going, shit, we got to face Diaz in the ninth. We better get him before the ninth.
Yeah, but also Diaz, he can only come into the game if you guys are doing well, or he should only come into the game if you're doing well or tied. Pete Alonso plays in 158 games a year. He gives you 42 home runs a year and 100 RBIs. You got to remember, Pete Alonso was in the lead of the MVP race in the first half of the season. Also, great protection for Juan Soto, and Juan Soto has told the Mets that he wants him back. Just the first baseman position is undervalued, so the Mets keep telling Pete Alonso to go out, and he's not going to get overpaid. Just like he said, and there is some argument to that, Diaz is a dominant guy, and with the ball in his hands, he can dictate outcomes of games a lot more than Pete Alonso can. But Diaz, you will see Pete Alonso every day. You won't see Diaz every day. It's like a starting pitcher and a positional player. Yes, a starting pitcher is dominant. You need one to win a ring. But you can only see a starting pitcher every 5 days. In the playoffs, maybe on short rest on 3 days. But Pete Alonso plays every single day. The best ability is availability, guys. And that's exactly what Pete Alonso gives you. Listen, the New York Yankees have Ben Rice, so we have our first base situation figured out. But if the Mets let Pete Alonso walk out the door and go up to Boston, that's going to be a terrible situation for me as a Yankee fan. And Met fans are going to be pissed off.
Right. So Pete Alonso might be coming up, but that's it to me. It's an easy one. I'll take Diaz.
I can negate Pete. You can always negate Pete. And I love Pete to death. I've talked to him a couple of times since the season ended, but trying to replace Edwin, you're going to end up with someone that's
well, just with the acquisition of Devin Williams. So Met fans, if you're listening, is that like a break glass in case needed? They got Devin Williams as a backup plan. Now, if you remember Devin Williams, and I said on the episode last, and you'll see that in the link at the end of this episode, that Devin Williams was brought into the New York Yankees to be the closer. He wound up being pitching in the 6th inning like he's Jonathan Loizaga. So that's what the New York Mets have to figure out, Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz. But I thought with Steve Cohen, with Uncle Stevie's money, you can have your cake and eat it too. So why aren't you going to get Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz and building the Death Star? You guys are going to get a casino soon.
Proven, or someone that's done it in the past, but you don't know which guy you're getting. Okay. And I love taking we did that with Britton. We did it with Jim Johnson. I love taking a starter from a team that can't afford these guys and make your own. You can make your own. You just got to pick the right guy and listen to people on the field. But he, life without a closer, when the guys are looking down going, I don't know how much is enough. It's not fun. It's not fun, especially in New York. And, you like to have both.
And that's why it makes me scratch my head that the Mets gave Devin Williams $51 million. The fact that he could not handle the pressure in the Bronx. What makes you think that he's going to be able to handle the pressure across town in Queens? And when he blows his first save, the Met fans are going to go eat him alive.
Both those guys on your team. Edwin's going to be really, really hard to replace.
Wait, Buck, you talk like you were a manager that had to figure out how to replace Edwin Diaz. Like you don't have any firsthand knowledge of that, do you? Firsthand experience?
Oh, we had to replace Jim Johnson, had to figure out Zach Britton. Don't get me started. We had, I can go back through.
He's being a little tongue-in-cheek here. Remember the playoffs? Blue Jay fans, you remember the Baltimore Orioles and the Blue Jays were going at it in the postseason, and Buck Showalter mismanaged his bullpen and didn't go to the World Series. The Orioles were revving to go, man. That's why they lost. They closed their window, and that's why they have all the young kids on their team, and they're back in fourth place again. Buck Showalter couldn't win the big one against the Blue Jays.
Do my closer list, and it seemed like we always went to Plan B. We always ended up with Plan B, but it was funner in places like Baltimore where you had to be a little innovative and go get a starter. And, believe me, Zach fought us tooth and nail about going to the bullpen. I think he kind of likes it now. He had those little hands with that he could get over the top of that sinker. He's the only guy that I've ever seen, Big Poppy, just completely, two guys. They had two left-handers, Britton and Brian Mattis, God rest his soul. Ortiz, check out his numbers against those two guys sometime. He didn't even want to see him come in the game.
Buck, I was talking about when you lost Edwin Diaz in the WBC.
Oh my God! Don't get me
you
going.
have firsthand knowledge of that.
Awful. There's a lot to that story about how that all happened. I think we basically had him talked out of going. I'll never forget. I get a call from Brandon Nemo about 9 o'clock, and in spring training I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I love spring training. I love everything about it. So I'm going night. I'm 10 toes up, and phone rings. I pick it up. It's Nim, and I go, "What's up, Nim?" He goes, "Are you watching this?" I go, "No, I'm going to bed, young man." He goes, "You might want to turn it on." And our season was basically over. It was over when he got hurt.
If you guys don't know what he's talking about in the World Baseball Classic, Diaz was pitching, I believe, for Puerto Rico. It's Puerto Rico against the Dominican Republic. In the celebration, Diaz was jumping up and down. He tore his Achilles and missed the whole season. If you remember, the Mets were gearing up to win a World Series that year, and Diaz gets knocked out. Now, the World Baseball Classic is coming up this year. I will be in attendance. I love it. If you haven't seen the tournament yet, it's going to be amazing. It's on MLB.TV. You can catch it all there. It's a tournament just like the World Cup. It's the World Cup of baseball. And take it seriously, guys, and it's unbelievable. It's a great product of baseball. It's going on since 1998. But I have to admit, Aaron Judge is the captain of the team. If, God forbid, he were to get hurt or another guy on the Yankees were to get hurt, it's like, why are we even playing in the tournament? But once you see the tournament, once you see these guys and the effort that they put forward, it's an amazing tournament if you love baseball. So I can see that, yes, franchises wouldn't want these guys to play in the World Baseball Classic. In fact, I am a real Karen when it comes to all-star games. I think it should be like the Pro Bowl. Just announce it, have a home run derby. Later, guys, you don't need to play that game. Also, I'd rather have Aaron Judge have his feet up for 6 days during the All-Star break than be the ambassador in the face of baseball, because Ohtani needs to get rid of that interpreter and start talking for interviews so Aaron Judge can take a few days off.